Welcome everyone to more Moms of Real Estate. I am so super excited. So you know me, I'm Pili Yarusi, and we also have Beka, Shea, we have Melissa Johnson, we have Stephanie Betters, but we have our first guest ever on More. Ooh. We have Monick Halm, the goddess, she's just amazing. I'm gonna let her. She decided, so every time we have a guest, we have decided that they are going to pick a pillar. So what are our pillars, Beka?
Marriage, money, mental health, and not murder.
Motherhood.
Motherhood.
Which is close to murder sometimes. So, and Monick has decided to pick marriage. So why don't we dive in deep? First, Monick, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your amazing message and mission, and then we'll just get into it.
Sure. So I am the founder of Real Estate Investor Goddesses. And I know that often I'm introduced as the Real Estate Investor Goddess, but it's plural for a reason, because I think we are all goddesses. We all have at least a drop of the divine within us. So we're all the women in my prayer, we're all goddesses. And my mission is to help 1 million women create financial freedom through real estate investing. And then we have this education, mentorship, and a community to support women creating these passive income streams through real estate. And I work with my husband, who's my business partner. He supports me in Real Estate Investor Goddesses and also in our investing business, because we are also syndicators. We bring groups of investors together to purchase larger commercial properties. We have multifamily, industrial, mobile home park, a variety of different things, a little over 1,300 units across 7 states now.
Wow.
But I wanted to talk. Well, actually, Pili is like, I'd love it if you would talk about marriage, because she had me on her podcast, and we discussed this. My husband and I actually did a retreat, and we were going to do we did one last year. We're going to do another one this year, but COVID, that didn't happen. It is called Real Estate Investor Soulmates. And it was on how can you use this process of real estate investing, not just how do you partner together so you can do it successfully, but how do you actually even use it to bring you more income and more intimacy with using the process to build wealth and love. And that is something we've been very intentional about, and we were teaching on. And we have some unconventional ways of doing that. Yeah. He's like so excited.
What is it?
I mean, what she got most excited about us talking, what we were talking, is how we use the tool of orgasm to create, to manifest, and we've literally orgasmed our way to all 349 doors. 1,349 doors. And I think that's why she's like, no, yeah, let's talk about that. That's really fun.
We forgot to put the racy disclaimer.
I know. It's like 18 plus. Well, anyway, yeah.
All of a sudden, my husband's walking in. What did you say?
Yeah, the husbands love this part. Yeah.
We need to listen to this girl, he says.
Pili, we can't hear you. What happened to you?
Oh no, there we are.
There you are.
I was saying, explain to us how this works, especially since Mr. Zach Betters, Stephanie's other half, has graciously walked in.
Left.
Oh no, Zach back.
So I'll tell you how we use the process, and it is not as we didn't just come up with it. Actually, if you've read Think and Grow Rich, actually is a whole chapter on sexual transmutation, like using that energy of sexuality. But basically, what is behind it is that when you are in that state of orgasm, you are at your most attractive. And I'm not just talking like physically attractive. I'm talking about law of attraction, attractive. Mm-hmm. You are actually at your most attractive to what you want at that state. Mm-hmm. So how we use it is during orgasm, when one of us is in it, the other one will say like, you're an orgasm, will go, $10 million. So this is my advice to all of you out there. Never waste an orgasm. They are very powerful. We don't.
Sharing affirmations.
And it is part of our practice. And we have a daily practice.
Oh, who's phone? I'm gonna point you out. So, never wasting an orgasm.
Yeah.
The ladies, I've had numerous discussions with Monick about this, and we've used it. And it's a powerful manifestation tool. I've asked all the questions. So Beka, Melissa, do you have any? And I'm going to have a disclaimer right now.
I'll make one, just say this too. Even if it doesn't work, who cares?
Right, exactly.
There's really no downside to doing this, right? If it's not working to manifest, it's working to get you and your partner closer together. So there's no downside to this practice, but it actually does really work too.
So I guess my follow-up question is, you talk about the soulmate partnership, right, on this journey or finding your real estate soulmate.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's more to it than just orgasms. Like hopefully like there's more for that moment. But give us like the 10,000 view.
The framework. Yeah. So Pili, I think she remembered that part. It's probably the most extraordinary of the things we talk about. But we have a framework that falls under the word love. And so the L had to do with language, and it was being able to speak each other's language. Not just, a lot of people are familiar with the 5 love languages. We do talk about that too, but even more than that, there are 4 main codes as for what influences people, how they perceive the world, how they have frameworks around the world, around their vision of the world. It's sort of, if you're familiar with DISC, it kind of falls along those lines of those 4. And it's really important to understand your partner's code, your partner's language, so that you can figure you're actually speaking. It's almost like you're going to Japan and you need to speak Japanese, or and you show up speaking French or English. There's just going to be this mismatch. You think that we're all speaking English, but when you look at the framework that people are putting over that they have this framework over how they see and interpret the world, they're really, even though it's the same words we're using, they're looking at them really differently. So it's important that you understand the language that your partner speaks and yours as well, so that you can get on the same page. The other thing at O is the orgasmic margin.
So on language, that reminded me of, we use this thing called culture index or predictive index, DISC. They kind of all do the same thing, right? Break down your personalities. And I had this conversation that's really stuck with me that sounds similar to that, which was, I was talking to our coach about my assistant. And he said, you don't speak the same language. You have to learn to speak her language. Like, for example, you're going to say, we're going to California tomorrow. Pack your bags, right? Because that's what I do. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm like, let's just do this. And he's like, she's going to want to know, what's the temperature? How long are you staying? Where are you going? What time does she need to be at the airport? And that I will always under communicate for what her needs are. So that actually sounds very similar to what you just said. Does that?
Exactly, because you're more of an action type, so you're a quick action taker. You actually don't like to have a lot of detail. You'll get bored if people start going too into the details of the planning, probably, from what you said. Whereas she's probably more of a blueprint planner, needs everything in order, which is great probably for an assistant. That's really good for that. But understanding what she needs is very different than what you need, and vice versa. And just like it works with your employees or your kids or whatever, it's really important with your partner that they too you need to understand what their language is, so that you're on the page. Yeah. Hi. And
well,
then
I'm an orgasm, so I'm bringing artichokes and coffee.
And what's the O?
The O is the orgasmic part. The V is the vision, having the same vision and values. So getting on the same page with regards to that. And the E is your environment, and that has to do with the people that you're around, your physical environment, and just like setting up your environment for success. I also, there was another part of it too, but we also do talk about, having, and I'm like, where did that go in the framework? But being in your right lane. So not part of what makes it work, working together in marriage and also in business is that we don't have the same job. So I'm not doing the same thing that he's doing. We communicate about everything, but I have certain tasks, he has other tasks. And so I'm in my lane, he's in his lane, and he's doing what he's best at. I do what I'm best at. And we're not all both trying to do the same things all the time. So having those separate jobs is really good, and really helpful. And then lastly is understanding like what hat we're wearing when we're speaking, and trying to be really cognizant too. It's like, okay, now we're a business partner hat. Okay, now it's like taking off. Now I'm your wife, and let's talk like we're co-parents or whatever our role is, so that we can try to separate them as much as possible. It's hard when you live together, you work together, you're together 24/7 like we are, but
I think I'm the only one here who doesn't do real estate with my spouse, or did with my spouse. So
yeah.
What was with your boundaries, Beka? Was it easier or harder, you think?
sometimes I wish that we were doing the same journey so we could get excited about the same things. So for me, it's more of I have to take a intentional moment to like put myself in, because he's a small business owner as well. So I have to like put myself in his shoes and realize how exciting or how important the thing is that he's talking about is. Whereas I feel like if you're in it together and you talk about, hey, our goal is to get, 500 doors, you're like, we just picked up 2 more doors. Woo! Like we don't have that shared excitement. So, but it's also nice because I can have the compartmentalization.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I love what you were saying, Monick, about the hats. Jason and I have the same. We're having that difficulty a few years back because we would talk nothing about real estate, and it would like mesh into everything, into like parenthood, and everything would be just like this coagulated mess. Start like taking apart everything and being like, okay, when we're doing real estate and we're doing business. And so Pili, when you're with the kids, you're with the kids, or when we're with the kids full force. We're mommy and daddy. When we're together, we're husband and wife, we're partners. And we have to like separate, okay, when we're in this room is real estate. This room is personal development. This is all that stuff. When we're in the bedroom, well, that's where the O comes in, right?
So it sounds like there might be some crossover there though.
I know.
Well, you find the good crossovers.
Yeah.
So I have a question for Monick. So
Yeah.
I love like 2 things that you said that really stood out to me that I always try to share with people also, is especially spouses working together, because like that could go really good or not so good. And so like having the defined roles, who's doing what is really important. But I love the hat thing also, like you said and Pili said, because I feel like so I was divorced at the beginning of this year, and my spouse and I worked together for 16 years, doing real estate. And so I think that was a big problem for us, was just like not knowing when to, change the hat, And so do you have any like tips or anything, to do that? Is it more just being aware in the moment, or is there any like thing you can say about that could make you be like, I need to change that hat or
Yeah. So, and I'll be honest, this is still something that we work on. It's can be hard to make that compartmentalization, but part of it is being really conscious and having that intention that that's how we show up, so that one of us can remind the other, right? So partly it's set by time, and then also it's like, okay, now we are on, like, this is work time, and then okay, now it's like we're in the dinner time. We're switching to another task. It's trying to go, okay, how can we, like, in this, as we're switching, really think, okay, let's take off that hat, put on this hat, and then and go, okay, new, if we have a break now, let's go into family mode, or let's go into this mode.
Do y'all communicate that, like, verbally, or just?
No, it's just, I mean, at this point, it's more just like how our intention. And then we also try not to talk about work in the bedroom. Try to keep that out of the bed.
Affirmations.
With the exception of the $10 million, whatever, orgasm. Well, I say that at that point, but not have a work discussion, like lying in bed, like, oh, what should we do about this thing? It's hard. It is a practice. It's not, we're not perfect at it. We do find ourselves like moving into that. So it's just like, okay, reminder, like, we are in the bedroom. It's like, stop. Let's not have this conversation. We'll table it until tomorrow morning when we get to work. So it is a, we're far from perfect at it, but we're cognizant that is what we want to have. So just being aware and having that intention has made it better. And we get better and better at it.
I think, Monique, this is a great thing, because I'm huge on actionable steps. If one of us or all of us or you came up with like actionable steps, and like you said, and which is perfect what you said, that you're not perfect at this. Your husband and Paul and you are continuously working on this. But if we could have actionable steps, because I know we have all dealt with it. Even you, Beka, you and your husband probably bring business where it shouldn't be. I know I do. I know Stephanie does. I know Melissa has. So if we can give our listeners like actionable steps to take them out and like pull these things apart and like wear the different hats, I think that's like amazing.
Well, so one step could be just having office hours, right? These are the times that we're at work, and this is the times where we're not at work, right? So that could be one thing. One way that you could have that compartment. It's like, we work from 9 to 5, or we take this break, and just give yourself times when you are working and then times when you are not working. Or you are communicating, your child comes, and that's like, okay, now I'm having a conversation with my child. I'm going to like be present to child, right? Be present to my daughter.
Have you ever had your kid grab your face?
Yes.
Attention.
And it makes you feel so bad. And then you realize that, oh my God, have you been calling my name for like 5 minutes? Because it's in the background. It's like, and then all of a sudden it's like, Mommy. And like, oh.
I would like a peanut butter and jelly now.
Or even sometimes it's just, I want a hug.
Oh.
I'm just like, okay. Well, no, this is great. Why don't we all just come up with some actual steps that we have used to pull ourselves out? So, Monique, you gave a great actionable step. Beka, Melissa, Stephanie, do you have anything on the top of your mind that you can think of that could be an actionable step to pull yourself back into the moment?
Yeah.
What you were saying, actually, Pili, made me think of what I do in work, which is like, you'll be in the middle of one task and you'll think, oh, I have to talk to someone about this. And for a long time, I was in a really bad habit of just being like, I'm just going to send a quick text, or let me just have a quick phone call, right? And I got my handy little book, and the people who I talk to on a regular basis, people work for me, the people I work for, they each have their own page in the book. And then I just write whatever that thought is on their page. And then when we get together to talk, I'm like, oh, hey, there's these 5 things. Because the reality is none of them are usually hair on fire things, right? It's like, can I send this thing? Or did we do that? It's not going to matter if it waits.
Yeah. So I guess that would correlate with between a marriage. If you guys are in, say, the moment of you're working and you have like a kid related thought. Okay, I'm going to write down this kid related thought because, I can probably go like on a tangent with my husband about everything with the kids while we're like discussing like underwriting some sort of property. So yeah, there's number 2, Beka. Melissa, do you have something that you think would bring a couples back into the moment?
I don't know. My first thought is just to be silly and just like actually get a hat. Because how men are sometimes, like they don't listen. So it's like, yeah, like I'm wearing, the wife hat right now. Now we may speak,
That's not silly. That's a great idea, actually.
Yeah.
To have something that's an actual anchor.
How fun would that be? Different colored hats, right? You go in, your kids know when your green hat's on, you're working.
Can we make purses maybe? Like, this is my purse when I...
Yeah.
Okay. We just have an excuse to buy my purses.
Other than wearing an actual hat. I think I don't feel like I have anything really new to add to that other than just like being self-aware enough probably to realize when it's happening to stop it and then to say something. I think that's the other part of it too, because sometimes like I'm just thinking back like through my experiences of not like shifting that gear, but not communicating about shifting the gear. So maybe it's like the awareness and then the communication, like saying it outright, like I'm doing this right now. This is not the time to talk about this. Let's talk about it at this time or whatever, but just like being very clear.
Yeah.
Would probably be just, the only other thing I would have to add.
Mine, I feel like is kind of silly, but it kind of helps me too. Like, especially with working from home. But, the traditional way that I got ready to go to work, to go to the office is like, I would get dressed and like put on my work clothes and then I would leave. Right. So with working from home, I feel like that all kind of got messed up too. I'd be like, kind of in my cozy pants or whatever. And then I'm like in like half cozy mode, half mom mode, half work mode, and it just kind of messed me up. So I make a distinctive effort. Like I do my exercise, take my shower, and I put on work clothes, and then when I'm done working, I go like put my sweatpants on like I normally would when I come home, So that has helped me a little bit. And then I think my kids kind of like see that I'm dressed, like, oh, she's working, Zach did a thing for a little while that I thought was really good. When he was in the office, he would put on like a tie. I mean, not like he would dress up to wear a tie, but like he would just put a physical tie on, even though he's wearing like a t-shirt. So he's like in work mode. And then kids like peek in like, oh, he's wearing his tie,
I love that.
Sometimes you're better at it than others, but it kind of helped put together like a little more of a routine of like transition times. I don't know. It definitely helps me. Maybe from a mental standpoint better because like I physically am changing, into a different zone.
I love the thought of the visual cues and like the intention of those visual cues. So I know we only have 5 more minutes with both Monick and Stephanie. So Monick, before we let you go, is there anything else that is so pressing about marriage that you need to impart to our listeners, to me and to these amazing women that we cannot live without?
Oh my gosh, no pressure.
No pressure.
What can you say that will change our lives right
now? 5 minutes. No.
That will transform our relationships. And I was like, I don't know. It's like the orgasm was the best thing I had there for you.
And that was transformational.
There are some of the things that have really helped me too. Is learning about the communication between men and women as well, because it's not just like the different personality codes. It's the men and women, our brains are different. We have different brain structures. We're chromosomally different, and we have different ways of looking at the world. There's Hunter. I've studied Alison Armstrong. I don't know if any of you are familiar with her. Highly recommend The Queen's Code, the book that she wrote, which is really good on, it's like being able to communicate with men.
I like that.
And that book really, really helped us, and not just helped me be able to communicate better with my husband, and just, with life, like really being able to understand him and my son too, seeing how he's growing up and how he's becoming, because men are not hairy women, they're not hairier women. They're different and they're wonderful. But often it's because we don't understand those differences and are expecting them to think more like us, that where challenges can show up. So that's the other thing I would recommend, is just reading the Queen's Code and other books like that, and just understanding the differences between the masculine and the feminine.
Monique,
You're probably in support of, and I am too. So this is coming from that same vein, I think. But it seems like you're in support of like some of the traditional roles and embracing that and going from there. Or tell me a little
Not
more.
Not necessarily about the traditional roles. It's just men are very much wired to want to help women, but they don't understand what we need. And so a lot of times part of the problem is we expect them to read our minds or understand, like, just know. They should know. Obviously they should know that that's how we, like, why can't they? It's so obvious. I've given them all these clues, right? Like, he should know that he needs to do this for me. And they're not mind readers, and they do not think like us. So they often, what you think is so obvious is not at all obvious to them. and what often happens is that there's this mismatch of communications, because you think it's been very obviously communicated what you need and want, and not at all to him. And he's really just wants to make you happy and help you. But because he's not heard this message of, like, that's so obvious what he ended up done, then you're angry at him, and then there's conflict. So it's not necessarily that he needs to be a provider and you're not, or like that in that traditional role. You're making dinner and caretaking, but it's just like the communication skill. But they do want to be protectors, and they do want to be your hero, and they do want to make you happy. I think for the most part, and it's just like understanding how you communicate with them so that they can win.
Mm-hmm.
I love all of it, Monique. Thank you so much. I want to be respectful of your time. I want to be respectful of Stephanie's time. Thank you so much, everyone. If you do not know Monique, what was that?
I said, thanks for having me.
Of course. Before I let you go, can you just plug your website really quick for us so everybody knows where to find you?
Sure. You can find me at reigoddesses.com or at reigoddesses on social.
Thank you so much, Monique. You have a fantastic day. And Stephanie, you have a fantastic day too.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Awesome. Yay.
Awesome. Wasn't that amazing?
She was great. I liked her.
Seriously, Monique is your best friend. Like, she is your best friend now. I wish we could talk to her for the next hour, but she was kind enough to give us a half an hour of her time. I just asked her yesterday. I was like, Monique, can you come on for a half an hour or an hour at 1 o'clock tomorrow? She's like, I have a half an hour. She is fantastic. So what did you guys think?
I loved it. I wrote down, read that book, The Queen's Code. I'll add it to my stack of like 10 books.
You only have 10 books in your stack?
We're all going to go buy it on Amazon now and add it to the stack.
I
love the action steps. Mm-hmm. I love the acronym LOVE, just the way she said basically love and language, orgasms, and being in the bedroom, being centered and being like focused on not only your your husband or your significant other, but using that as sort of a lift up point, if you want to call it that, of like getting into your success, and then vision and values, and then your environment. I mean, all of that just, I mean, I love acronyms, and just the way she puts it is fantastic. I really wish, and I think Jason and I were thinking about going to her conference had she had it, but whenever she puts her conference back on, you need to go to it, everybody who's listening.
Is it a couple thing, or is it just like for
she
women?
has, this is her soulmates conference is a couples thing, but she has her real estate investor her real estate goddess conference that is huge. I was going to go to that one. I forgot when it was supposed to be, but then COVID hit and she canceled it. So whenever it comes back, or if she decides to do it as a summit, like, you should really, really get in contact with her and go to it. And seriously, if you're not in contact with her, anybody who's listening to this right now, you need to get in contact with Monick and follow her. She is everything that is about goddesses and real estate. I can't say enough good things about her.
You know what? One of the things that I found super interesting was I've been in this kind of personal evolution, and I think we all have been growing a lot the past couple of years. And I spent a lot of my time thinking, you know, like on equality, right? Men and women, we're the same. We can do the same thing. And I think my journey as a manager, like managing people and leading people, has made me realize that, I mean, not just men and women are different, but like all people, like that story I told about my assistant, like you need to talk to people in the way, like she said, communicate so they can win, right? I think that goes for every relationship. And it's funny because my sister and I just had a conversation recently where, you know, we were talking and she wasn't feeling heard. And I said, you know what the thing is? We were talking in the context of the love languages. I said, it's true. Your love language is words of affirmation, but mine is acts of service. So I haven't been communicating to you in the way that you need to be communicated to. So I thought that was really interesting on her part and tied in nicely with some stuff I've been processing lately.
Yeah, we did talk about the love languages in one of the earlier episodes. So it was really interesting that she brought that back up again. I mean, just some of the like the context clues, and like really, because Jason and I really had to like really learn without actually reading the book. We haven't read the book yet. But learning how each other communicates. And I think I've told you this before. I communicate, I can talk around a subject and talk tangents. And in fact, I'll probably jump into another tangent next second. Whereas Jason's very to the point. He wants to know, he wants the details, he wants the action steps. So a lot of his language is filtered into my own, because I find that, you know, even as with this show that we're doing right now, all of our listeners out there listen in different ways. So some of us listen and they get the feeling and they get the emotion of it. And that's how that's where they act from. Some people need the action steps. They want to know, but Pili, how do I do it? How do I communicate with my husband? How do I communicate with my significant other? How do I do this? So I think it's not only for us to be better communicators with our significant others and our partners, but just in general. Yeah. To kind of like acknowledge, even when you're just meeting someone, listening enough that you kind of acknowledge how they listen and how they speak, and that so you can communicate better with them. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay,
If you have a thought, I don't want to override you, but I have a story about my husband and I. My husband is super quiet. He's an engineer. We actually met in engineering school. We're both mechanical engineers. He's what I call an engineer's engineer, right? Like he is very thorough and process oriented, and he's a great balance for me. But I like to have a million things going at all times, right? And then like 15 on the back burner. And it took us probably a good 10 years of marriage to recognize that like he just needs quiet space to just be allowed to do his own thing. So like every Father's Day, I actually take our kids away. Like that's my gift to him. Is like you never have a day where you're in. And he's also a homebody. Like his land is very important to him. His house is very important to him. It's like a status, like his kingdom, right? And it's constantly overrun by females who are just noisy and breaking things and leaving joyful little messes behind them, right? Which I view as like a symbol of happy children. The fact that they're singing and they're crafting and like, I'm like, we're doing something right. And for him, it's like just, overload. So
chaos.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really interesting, but it took, we've been together now almost 20 years. That probably took us 10 years for me to figure out that one thing. Mm-hmm. I am chaos, and sometimes he doesn't love chaos.
It's very true. I could be one of your daughters, just kind of like skipping around, leaving messes wherever I go. That's me. Where you could be my mommy. Anywho,
let's go to crafts, Pili.
Yes, let's go make crafts.
Let's have Melissa lead an art session for us. Have you seen the things she does? It's amazing.
Yes, it's amazing. So before we leave our amazing audience, do you guys have anything else to add to this amazing discussion that we've just had about marriage?
Don't you feel like everything just comes back down to communication?
Yeah.
Like it really does. Like if you boil it down to like its bare bones of everything, it's just about communicating and how we communicate. Mm-hmm. Because like she said, there's so many different ways to communicate. You've got like the love language thing, you've got like how you're communicating verbally, how you're communicating like physically with each other, like with your kids, you communicate a different way. It's just like, but if you don't communicate at all, that's, I just feel like that's what leads to so many issues and so many things that could be avoided had communication been there.
Yeah, had you done it correctly and at all. Because I know
it starts with at all. Like if you don't say anything, like we were talking about earlier, Monick was saying, they want to help us, they want to do all these things, but a lot of times we don't communicate that we need help or whatever. We talked about that before. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because Melissa, I was thinking about you, and Danny and Matt and I, like Matt's not your typical aggressive male, right? So, you talk about like masculine energy and like how they can win. I think I'm pre-programmed to understand the aggressive male much better and like know how to soothe their ego. Sometimes I'm just at a loss. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. Life journey. I'm going to go read the Queen's Code.
Maybe that's why you guys make such a great couple, because he keeps you on your toes and you like that.
He's good balance. It took me a long time to appreciate that balance and to see it for the strength that it was.
Well, on that note, I think we can end on this amazing communication, this amazing thought, amazing process of marriage and communicating within marriage, and the different ways we can communicate within marriage. As you hear my child.
But yours are mine, because mine was just running down the hall screaming.
It's Moms of Real Estate. So, to all of our listeners out there, thank you so much for honoring us with your time. And I hope you got so much information and so much help from Monick. I know I did. I know the ladies did. We are all, Beka, Stephanie, and Melissa are now best friends with Monick because I say so. And if you can, go check Monick out at her website. And thank you so very much. Beka, Melissa, do you have any last parting words?
No, I always enjoy this time together.
Yes. It's my favorite time of the week.
Yes.
All right.
Everyone, thank you so much. You're amazing. Bye now.